January 1909. Strange reports began spreading across New Jersey. The morning after a heavy snowfall, people started finding unnatural tracks outside their homes, small, hoof-like footprints. But something about them felt wrong. The tracks did not remain on the roads. They crossed over fences, passed across rooftops. Some even continued over frozen rivers. At first, people assumed it was some kind of prank. But then the same reports began appearing in neighboring towns. And the next day, more tracks were discovered. Then more. Night after night, people claimed they heard strange sounds deep within the forests. Sometimes it sounded like an animal. Sometimes it sounded almost human, like distant screaming carried through the trees. But nobody could clearly explain what they were hearing. The people who heard it said the same thing. It made their skin crawl. It made them lock their windows without even thinking. Then a few days later, someone mentioned an old name once again, the Jersey Devil, the Devil of New Jersey. And once that name began spreading, the panic moved even faster. Schools shut down. Factory workers refused to work night shifts. Police officers entered the woods carrying rifles. Newspapers printed fresh sightings every single day. But the strangest part was this. Nobody could clearly explain what they had actually seen. What exactly were people witnessing? Was there truly something hiding deep within the forests of New Jersey? Or had an old fear, created centuries earlier, somehow become real inside people's minds? The story of the Jersey Devil begins in the Pine Barrens of southern New Jersey, an endless stretch of pine forests, swamps, an isolated wilderness where human presence almost disappears after dark. Even today, some locals still avoid entering those woods alone late at night. But the most interesting part of the legend is this. The story may not have started with a monster at all. It may have started with rumors about a real family. In the 1700s, a man named Daniel Leeds lived in New Jersey. He published calendars and almanacs. The problem was that his writings strongly conflicted with the dominant Quaker religious community at the time. Leeds included astrology, mysticism, and occult symbolism in his publications. Religious leaders viewed his work as dangerous. Gradually, he became known as a controversial figure, and over time, strange rumors began spreading about the Leeds family, a cursed bloodline, a family connected to the devil, people who had offended God. At the time, accusing someone of being connected to evil was an incredibly powerful attack. A single rumor could permanently destroy how an entire family was viewed. Some historians now believe the Jersey Devil legend may have grown directly out of these religious and political conflicts. In other words, there may never have been a real monster in the beginning. Only stories created to demonize the Leeds family, stories that slowly transformed into legend over time. But human imagination works in strange ways. The more a story is repeated, the more real it begins to feel. And eventually, people began telling a far darker version of the tale. There was supposedly a woman named Mother Leeds. She had already given birth to many children. Then she became pregnant once again, the 13th child. Exhausted and overwhelmed, she allegedly cried out in despair. She wished the child would be born a devil. Then one stormy night, the child was born. At first, it appeared completely normal. But according to the legend, the atmosphere inside the room suddenly changed. The baby's cries became unnatural. The The family backed away in terror. And then, the child itself began changing. The story claims the creature slowly transformed into something inhuman. The room erupted into chaos. People screamed, and the creature escaped into the darkness through the chimney. After that night, strange stories supposedly continued throughout the Pine Barrens. Of course, none of this has ever been proven. It is only legend. But that is not the important part. What mattered was that people began believing it. And fear becomes real the moment enough people believe it is. January 1909. Suddenly, the Jersey Devil no longer felt like an old legend. It felt real. The first thing people discovered was footprints in snowy backyards, along narrow streets, near barns, and even across rooftops. Witnesses claimed the tracks appeared everywhere. But what disturbed people most was the pattern. The prints did not move like normal animal tracks. They changed direction suddenly, crossed over fences, continued across rooftops. Some tracks even reappeared on top of walls taller than a human being. People became increasingly uneasy. Then the first major sighting was reported. A mail carrier claimed he saw a strange figure standing at the far end of a dark road during an early morning delivery route. At first, he thought it was a horse. But as it moved closer, something felt terribly wrong. Its proportions looked unnatural. Its movements did not resemble any normal animal. And according to the witness, the most disturbing part was the silence. The figure moved across the snow almost soundlessly. Then suddenly, it vanished over a fence and disappeared into the darkness. Soon more people began reporting similar encounters, and many of them had no connection to each other whatsoever. Different towns, different witnesses, the same fear. Newspapers immediately seized the story. Headlines appeared daily. The monster terrorizing New Jersey, the devil of the Pine Barrens, the unknown creature seen again. Every morning, people opened the newspapers hoping to find out where the creature had appeared the night before. And from that point forward, the Jersey Devil was no longer just folklore. It had become a full-scale public panic. As January continued, the sightings became even more disturbing. People were no longer claiming they heard strange noises. Now they insisted they had seen the creature itself. One farmer claimed he sensed something unusual near his barn late one night. The animals had become strangely agitated. The horses kept stomping violently inside their stalls. The chickens refused to settle down. The farmer grabbed a lantern and stepped outside. Then somewhere behind the barn, he heard movement, branches snapping, heavy breathing, and a dark shape rushing past in the darkness. He immediately ran back for his rifle, but when he returned, there was nothing there, only strange tracks left behind in the snow. A few days later, a police officer reported his own encounter. While patrolling late at night, he claimed he spotted an unidentified silhouette standing at the end of an alleyway. The officer pulled out his revolver and fired. But the moment the gunshot echoed through the street, the figure disappeared instantly. Nobody could even confirm whether it had been hit. All that remained, according to the officer, was a strange sound lingering in the night air. After incidents like these, people became increasingly convinced this was not some ordinary prank. There were simply too many witnesses, police officers, mail carriers, farmers, factory workers, children. Completely unrelated people from different places were describing the same growing fear, and slowly the atmosphere across New Jersey began changing. People stopped going outside after dark. Families kept lights on through the night. Some residents even claimed entire streets became completely empty after sunset. Curtains remained closed. Children slept while covering their ears whenever strange noises came from outside. At that point, the fear had stopped feeling like an old legend. It had started becoming part of daily life itself. At the height of the panic, parts of New Jersey were approaching complete paralysis. Children stopped attending school. Parents were too afraid to let them leave the house. Some schools temporarily shut down entirely. Even teachers reportedly felt uneasy. Fear spread rapidly among factory workers as well, especially those working overnight shifts. At least one factory allegedly experienced workers refusing to report for night duty altogether. And it is important to remember something. The nights of New Jersey in 1909 were very different from today. The forests were darker, the roads were emptier, and people were far more vulnerable to rumor and fear. Meanwhile, newspapers continued feeding the panic every single day. One farm reported livestock behaving violently for no clear reason. Horses became uncontrollable inside their stalls. Chickens erupted into chaos. And according to witnesses, whenever these incidents occurred, strange sounds were often heard coming from the woods nearby. The headlines only became more extreme. The unknown creature terrorizing New Jersey, a black figure seen flying across the night sky. Unexplained attacks continue. The more stories appeared, the more frightened people became. Eventually, the entire atmosphere across New Jersey began resembling mass hysteria. And yet, nobody could fully describe what they had seen. Descriptions varied constantly. The size changed from witness to witness, but nearly everyone described the same feeling. The moment they encountered it, their body froze, and every instinct in their body told them to run. That was the point where the Jersey Devil stopped being just a monster story. It became something larger, a symbol of fear itself. As the panic spread across America, something strange began happening. People started profiting from the fear. The more terrified the public became, the more newspapers sold. Bars filled with conversations about the Jersey Devil. Children frightened each other with stories late into the night. And eventually, some people realized something important. Fear could make money. One incident became especially famous. A museum owner in Philadelphia made a shocking announcement. He claimed he had captured the Jersey Devil. Crowds gathered immediately. Newspapers exploded with headlines. The monster has finally been captured. Long lines formed outside the museum. And inside a cage, people saw a bizarre creature. A twisted body, large wings, an unnatural appearance. Visitors were horrified, but eventually the truth came out. The creature was not a monster at all. It was a kangaroo. The museum had attached artificial wings to the animal as part of an elaborate hoax. People were furious. But the incident revealed something important. By that point, people already wanted to believe the monster was real. Some individuals had simply learned how to profit from that fear. And from there, the panic only grew larger. Newspapers printed increasingly sensational headlines. Sightings became more exaggerated. Even ordinary sounds were interpreted as signs of the creature. And little by little, the Jersey Devil stopped being just a legend. It became something far larger, a mixture of fear, rumors, mass psychology, commercial exploitation, and human imagination. Years later, researchers and biologists began re-examining the events of 1909 from a more realistic perspective. They asked a simple question. If people had not actually seen a monster, then what exactly had they seen? Several animals were proposed as possible explanations. Large birds, diseased livestock, wild animals seen under poor conditions, but one creature became the most widely discussed candidate: the sandhill crane, a massive bird native to North America. From a distance, it can appear enormous. Some individuals grow nearly as tall as a human being. Its wingspan can stretch beyond 2 meters, and because of its long neck and narrow face, it can look deeply unnatural in darkness. Especially at night, its silhouette could easily appear unfamiliar or disturbing. Then there was the sound. The cry of a sandhill crane is famously unsettling. Some people describe it as sounding almost human, like a scream mixed with an animal howl. The kind of sound that feels wrong the moment you hear it. Some researchers believe the people of New Jersey may have mistaken a large crane for a monster while trapped in a state of collective fear. Especially during snowy nights when anxiety and rumor had already consumed entire towns. Under fear, human perception becomes unreliable. Shadows appear larger. Movements feel unnatural, and people begin filling gaps in reality with imagination. But even that explanation does not fully solve the mystery. Why did the panic spread so aggressively? Why were so many unrelated people describing the same terror? Why did schools and factories become affected? And perhaps most importantly, why has the legend survived for more than 300 years? Those questions still remain unanswered. As time passed, people slowly began realizing something important. The true mystery was not whether a monster existed. The real mystery was why people became so afraid in the first place. The nights of early New Jersey were different from today. The forests were darker, and people lost sleep over even the smallest rumor. Meanwhile, newspapers continued amplifying the fear every single day. One strange noise became a terrifying story. One shadow became another sighting. And little by little, fear spread from person to person, until eventually, people truly believed something was out there. Maybe the Jersey Devil never had a physical form at all, but humans work that way. When enough people fear something, even imagination can begin feeling real. And that is exactly how the Jersey Devil survived. For centuries, people in New Jersey remembered the same name, feared the same forests, repeated the same stories. And strangely, the sightings never disappeared completely. Campers still claim they hear disturbing noises deep in the woods. Drivers occasionally report seeing dark shapes crossing isolated roads at night. And sometimes, unusual tracks are still discovered in remote areas. Most of these stories are probably misunderstandings, misidentified animals, exaggerated memories, or fear shaped by old legends. But fear has always been strongest in moments that cannot be fully explained. And the story of the Jersey Devil survived precisely because of that uncertainty. Even today, people still warn others not to enter the Pine Barrens alone late at night. The reason is simple. Some still claim they hear strange sounds there. Sounds too sharp to be wind, too unnatural to be ordinary animals. And very occasionally, someone claims they saw movements in the darkness that did not feel normal. Of course, most people insist the Jersey Devil was never real, just an old legend, a case of mass panic, a story created and sustained by human imagination. And maybe they are right, but one thing is undeniable. During the winter of 1909, the people of New Jersey were genuinely terrified. Schools closed, factories slowed down, people avoided going outside after dark. Entire towns became consumed by fear. Whether that fear came from a real creature or from something humans created themselves, nobody truly knows. Maybe the Jersey Devil was never a monster hiding in the woods. Maybe it was something born inside human minds. But one fact remains: once fear takes hold deeply enough, it can survive for generations. And perhaps that is the real reason the Jersey Devil legend still exists today. And maybe, even now, someone deep within the Pine Barrens is still seeing something they cannot explain. If this story left you wondering, the next one is waiting for you. Subscribe and stay with us.